everybody, and welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Marcia Parker, and I'm here with Mark Meer, and you must know him from Mass Effect 2 and many, many other games, I should say.
Yes, such games as Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 3, and also Dragon Age and Baldur's Gate and The Long Dark and many other things.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned The Long Dark. Of course, I love Mass Effect, the trilogy. It's really great, but I was actually one of the few people that was part of the Kickstarter getting The Long Dark.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and so I had questions about a little bit about that, like because I know you were a part of the Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they brought me on board, and Jennifer, of course, Jennifer Hale, the female Commander Shepard, who is also in the game. And for the first time, we actually get to do scenes together rather than playing essentially the same person. So that was a lot of fun. And we also have David Hayter, who was the voice of Snake from Metal Gear Solid. And I don't think he's in the episodes that have been released so far, but in upcoming episodes, Elias Tufexis, who was Adam Jensen in Deus Ex. And we're all Canadian, and the game is set in Canada, and has in fact been called Player versus Canada. So yeah, it's a very, very Canadian game. And you've obviously, as a backer, you've had an opportunity, probably at least for the sandbox. To do.
Yeah.
So you've had experience with dying many times of various causes and being eaten by wolves and bears and starving and freezing. Yeah. But now, in addition to all that fun dying and seeing how long you can survive, there is a story mode, Wintermute, which was just released on August 1st. Mm-hmm. And so that's out now for Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and on Steam. And so there actually is a narrative, there's a story, and we're releasing it in, Season 1 is called Wintermute, and the first couple of chapters, or first couple of episodes of that are out now.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so your site is a horror site, so that game's largely about death. It's largely about dying.
It is, and it's a survival game, and it's really interactive, really fun to play. I'm super excited when I found it. I was like, oh, he's part of that? That's so awesome.
Yeah, and as we say, it's a very, a realistic look at a post-apocalypse survival game because there are no zombies or mutants. I got nothing against zombies. I like zombies. But in our game, the real enemy is nature. Yeah.
And that's the most interesting part about it is because there's really nothing. Like, I could play the game for hours, and I'm like, I still haven't met another person out there.
Yes, and of course that changes with the release of our narrative mode, of the story mode. You'll. People have talked to me about how sort of isolating and lonely the feel of the game is, and some people really enjoy that aspect. But there is going to be actual interaction with other characters and humans, not just frozen corpses, as has been the case up till now. So I hope you enjoy the story mode.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to playing the story mode. I had a lot of fun with the sandbox mode, so I'm looking forward to actually being able to sit down and play it through and see what that all adventure is going to be like. As a horror show, I know we were talking a little bit about horror and your love for it.
I am a fan.
And you told me that you had a very special day coming up in October?
Yes, that's right. My wedding anniversary is Halloween. My wife, Belinda Cornish, and I, we got married on Halloween. It will be 16 years ago now. Halloween is, of course, a very special... I've always loved Halloween, and Belinda has loved Halloween, too, and that's one reason why we decided to have a Halloween wedding. And also that means we have Halloween anniversaries every year, which is, it's a great excuse for a Halloween party. And recently we've been doing a bit of Halloween tourism. So we've done Salem for Halloween. We did the Greenwich Village Halloween Parade. We've done the big West Hollywood Street Carnival, their Halloween Street Carnival. This year we're doing a convention in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, FIFOCon, the weekend before Halloween. And so we're going to stick around and go to New Orleans for Halloween.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's super exciting. I'm super jealous. I mentioned before, that was a dream of mine is to have that same sort of anniversary, but I get to enjoy horror other ways, so I guess I have to settle. I know you do a lot of the games, and then you do have some movie background, but I haven't seen you in a lot of horror stuff. Is that something that you have on your list?
Oh, certainly. We've done on my sketch comedy show that we have in Canada. It's called Caution May Contain Nuts, and we're shooting another season of it coming up. We've done lots of Walking Dead parodies. I got to be a zombie, so I got to spend an entire day in full zombie makeup. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And of course, I brought a lot of my own stuff because I've got quite an extensive collection of costumes that I've used both for Halloween and for cosplay. Although one recent project was quite horror oriented. I did a game called Slay Away Camp. which is a mobile game from Blue Wizard, and it's a very sort of how would you describe it? Very pixelated and cutesy, but very gory and bloody. And it's a salute to horror and slasher movies of the 1980s.
Oh, perfect.
And the framing device is sort of like an old VHS video horror rental store, and the various levels of the game are all Slayaway Camp and then the various sequels to the original Slayaway Camp. So I was brought on, the gag is that I'm the voice of Skullface, who is the main killer in the game. Skullface, of course, doesn't actually talk like Michael Myers and Jason. So what I actually do in the game is provide a lot of the screams, the horror movie narrator voiceover at the beginning of each level, that sort of thing. And there are, I believe I can say, there are some hidden bits of Skullface dialogue, specifically his haikus or daikus, as he calls them. And so in addition to Skullface, one of the features of the game is like a wide range of killers and slashers that you can choose from. And I was very gratified that I as myself, got to be one of the killers.
Yeah.
And my finishing move is using the Necronomicon to summon Cthulhu, who then destroys my opponent.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's lots of fun. And Derek Mears, who's a buddy of mine, he was of course the most recent incarnation of Jason. And he's been many other creature roles. He was in the Adrian Brody Predator movie, Predators, and he's been in so much. He's done like a lot of work on the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. He was the action figure of his character, I think, is like Queen Anne's zombie. So yeah, if you've seen that. And yeah, Derek is he's done lots of work on Sleepy Hollow and whatnot. So Derek actually came on board the project. He voices the final girl, Jessica. So, yeah, it's a very fun and funny project, and Derek also is in the game as himself as a killer, and his finishing move is particularly good. It's I believe it's called Unborned.
Okay.
Yeah, and so Derek's finishing move is to go back in time and kill your parents before you're born, and then you disappear. So yeah, it's really worth checking out. I think any fans of horror and puzzle games would enjoy Slayaway Camp.
Is it already out?
Yes, it is. It's a mobile game, and it's I believe it's also available on Steam.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it can be played on a home computer as well.
Awesome.
And yeah, Blue Wizard put it out. So Slayaway Camp is what you should look at.
Is that on Android and Apple, or do you know?
I'm not quite up to date on it. I believe it was certainly planned to be. I'm not sure if the Android version has rolled out yet, but the internet will tell you.
Yeah. All right. Well, keep an eye on it, because I know I'm gonna definitely go and check that out as soon as we get done with this interview.
If you're a horror fan, I think you'll dig it. Yeah.
That's amazing. So what got you into horror? What was the thing that dragged you in?
I was always a horror fan. I was always a huge fan of Halloween as a kid, and I think what got me into horror in the first place was being traumatized by horror movies when I was a little kid, because one time when my parents were out, the babysitter let me watch Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, the original. Yeah, so that was very influential on perhaps my worldview and my interests. I've always been a fan of comics and whatnot. I'm a big H.P. Lovecraft fan, obviously, with my finishing move in Slayaway Camp. I do like a Cthulhu, Call of Cthulhu LARP in the UK every year.
Oh, nice.
With my wife and I, we both do it. And this one isn't one that's open to the general public. It's just friends of ours they're all professional actors. And so as you can imagine, they throw quite the LARP. It's like being in an improvised horror movie. Like, they spend months building the props for this, and it's just amazing. It's like an improvised horror movie that will only be seen by you, and you're a participant in it. So
that's amazing. I definitely have to check that out. I haven't heard of it before.
Yeah, it's well, there are quite a few Call of Cthulhu. I know here in the States, there's events that are open to the public that you can go see. But this one is something special, and we really enjoy doing that. So yeah, as I said, I've just always been a fan of horror, and going back to horror comic books, going back to like House of Mystery and House of Secrets, and all of that kind of thing. I grew up in Canada, but the town I lived in, our American feed came from Detroit, where they used to have a thing called Scream Theater, and that's how I got to watch like a lot of the old classic, Vincent Price stuff. We also had a show in Canada, a kids show, believe it or not, called.
Let me guess. Are You Afraid of the Dark?
No. I'm old, so this was this was a show from.
It was a Canadian show.
That's true, yes. But I'm old, so this was actually a kids show from the 70s called The Hilarious House of Frightenstein. And I'd say, that was also very influential. And believe it or not, this kids show starred Vincent Price.
Really?
Yeah, doing all like sort of scary poems as interstitial thing. It was essentially a kids sketch comedy show about monsters that was set in a haunted castle, and it was amazing. Look it up if you can. It's a Canadian classic, The Hilarious House of Frightenstein.
What is your favorite horror movie that you like that scares you the most?
Ooh, that scares me the most. Well, probably, due to the scars it left on my psyche.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't watched it recently. I have watched it as an adult, and it loses some of its punch. But the original, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. So one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Not necessarily one that scared me, but Near Dark. Directed by Catherine Bigelow and starring Lance Henriksen, who I actually ended up getting to work with in the Mass Effect trilogy.
Oh, that's awesome.
And when I met Lance face to face, that was one of the first things I said to him, was just like, Near Dark. It's just amazing. Yeah.
Did he go like, oh, thank you?
Lance, if you get Lance talking about Near Dark, you can tell how much those guys enjoyed working on that film.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've probably seen interviews with Lance where he talks about they were ready to do a sequel, and he and Bill Paxton, with Bill Paxton's recent passing, Lance was sort of reminiscing about Near Dark and that sort of stuff. Yeah, I would have loved to see a sequel to Near Dark. It was amazing. But it's hard to pick a favorite. American Werewolf in London, of course, was very influential. I mean, would you consider Jaws a horror movie?
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah, so
definitely.
Jaws is one of my favorite films of all time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, you have everything. You have the suspense, you have the creature, you have like gallons and gallons of blood. So
That's very true.
definitely checks it off as a horror movie for sure.
Yeah. And as as an older kid, like when I was in junior high and high school, I was a big Nightmare on Elm Street fan.
Mm-hmm.
I even remember watching the old Freddy Krueger TV show, Freddy's Nightmares.
What? I don't think I know. I haven't watched it.
It's interesting because it was aired on network TV in the 80s, so it's like a much tamer version of Freddy than you might be used to, but it still had its charms. For sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's so exciting. Well, thank you so much. I know we didn't really talk a lot about Mass Effect, the trilogy. It happened.
I play this monster in Mass Effect. He's
Yeah.
scary.
He's pretty scary looking. He's got the teeth.
Yes. Actually, I play all of there's an alien race that I play all of, and that's
Oh,
one.
really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm Commander Shepard, but I also get to play a bunch of aliens too, which is fun.
That's gonna be the best part of being a voice actor, right?
It's true because with voice acting, you're not necessarily typecast by your look.
Right.
You have a much wider range of characters you can play, and you can play monsters without spending 6 to 8 hours in prosthetics.
Right.
Not that I'd mind that. Like I enjoy being in the makeup chair and getting stuff put on me. Yeah.
So what got you into voice acting?
Well, I basically, a lot of people often ask, so how do you become a voice actor? I say, well, step one is be an actor.
Right.
And that I did it the old-fashioned way. I got into voice acting by going to an audition with BioWare back in the 90s, and they liked my work enough that they just kept hiring me for pretty much all of their subsequent games. The first thing that I did with them was Baldur's Gate 2.
Yeah.
And I think in some capacity or another, I think I've worked on pretty much every other project that BioWare has put out since then. So yeah, I never really set out to go, well, I'm going to be a voice actor. It was like, I'm an actor. When you're an actor, you go to various things, especially if you don't have another job besides acting, you're going to find you might be doing a play one week and then doing a commercial the next, and doing something on radio. That said, I was a big nerd, so getting the chance to work in video games with, some friends of mine had worked for BioWare before that, and I was always, let me know when they have an audition because I'd love to. And again, I was lucky enough to get on the ground floor when they were still doing general auditions. And they liked my work enough, again, that they kept hiring me. I work constantly, like in theater, and I do a lot of improv comedy. As mentioned, I do a couple of TV shows in Canada. One's called Tiny Plastic Men, which is sort of a surreal sitcom mixed with sketch comedy. The other one's pretty much a straight comedy sketch comedy show called Caution May Contain Nuts. More traditional straight sketch comedy rather than in Tiny Plastic Men. We sort of have a sitcom element that links everything together. I also do a sketch comedy show called The Irrelevant Show on CBC Radio in Canada.
Awesome.
And many other things. And yeah, like I say, when
you have a well-rounded career going.
Thank you.
Yeah, it just amazes me. Like, not amazes me that you're well-rounded, but like just how big reach people can get when you open yourself to do that.
It's true, yeah, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I really like being able to work on different projects and different media, and for example, people often ask, so if you had to choose one, it's like I wouldn't want to choose one. I like the variety.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here. It's been awesome talking to you. You've been a wealth of knowledge and all of your career and also horror, so that's awesome. And thank you guys for joining us here at the Phoenix Game On Expo here 2017. Keep an eye out for more footage coming your way, episodes. Yeah, that's what we do here. Anyways, thank you for coming, and remember, stay scared.